Welcome back to Karen's Kitchen. Today we're going to make cinnamon roll cookies. It's not too often I find a new recipe that is a definite keeper, and this is one of them. I have half a cup of butter that I've melted, and I'm going to add to that a cup of brown sugar, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 3 tablespoons of flour. This is just the cinnamon roll, the little chunks that we're going to put in our cookie that we need to get in the freezer. So I'm just going to get this mixed up for a second, and we're going to spread that onto a cookie sheet and just pop it in the freezer while we get the cookie dough ready. So this one here, just get your lumps of your brown sugar out of there. Just make sure it's all mixed well. You can just do this by hand because the margarine is melted. Just put parchment paper on your cookie sheet, makes it easier for clean up and pulling it off. And we're just going to spread that on there. So instead of a lot of cookies you would put chocolate chips or something in, we're going to put little chunks of this cinnamon mixture in our cookies, which is going to give you kind of that cinnamon roll. You're not actually rolling our cookie, but it's going to give you that cinnamon roll kind of a taste. So we're going to just spread this. Spread it about a 1/4 inch thick or thin so that it can freeze fairly quick. And this will freeze in about 10 minutes or so while you get the rest of your cookie dough ready. All right, so we're going to do the dough part of our cinnamon roll cookies. It takes 1 cup of butter and 1 cup of margarine. I think this recipe makes about 5 dozen cookies, so it's a big batch. And we're going to add to that 2½ cups of white sugar. And we're going to get this mixing in our mixer because you want this to be nice and light and creamy. So just get it going, and we're going to get that up to speed, and we're going to just mix this probably for a minute. We'll scrape it halfway through to make sure it's going all the way to the bottom because we want this to look nice and fluffy. All right, I'm just going to scrape this about halfway through. That was about 30 seconds. I just see that there's a bit of sugar stuck on the bottom that's not mixing in properly. So we're just going to scrape the sides of the bowl and get that mixing again. You want that nice and soft and creamy. All right, while it's mixing, we're just going to add in 2 eggs. And I have 1/4 cup of corn syrup. And we have some baking soda, a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. My cap measures about a teaspoon. And I'm going to scrape the bowl again because I can see that my sides are not getting all the way mixed in properly. So I'll scrape my sides one more time before we add in our flour. Alright, you can go take a look. It's a nice soft dough at the moment, and that is nicely mixed. And now we're going to add in 5 cups of flour. Start your mixer off slowly because with all that flour it will poof up into your face if you start too fast. You want to get your dough mixed really well. Starts together becoming crumbly, and then it'll all come together. I always like to look at the bottom of the bowl because when I can see that all the flour and dry stuff is mixed in, then I know it's all mixed in. That looks good. So the dough part is ready. So now we got to go get our cinnamon mixture out of the freezer and chop it up. All right, I just pulled this out of the freezer. It's barely been 5 minutes or so, and it is frozen or firm. Get it off of your parchment paper, and you want to chop this up into little pieces. And you want to get this into your dough, but you don't want to mix so much that it blends in with your dough. You want little chunks in your dough. So that's why we want to just keep this roughly chopped up. Don't have to be perfect. You want to work fairly quickly because you don't want this to all soften up. You want it to stay in chunks. All right. So at the bottom of my pot, I'm going to get a little bit and throw some in there, about half of it. Then I'll pull off this top part and get a bit more on the top because I don't want to mix this very long. I'm only going to mix it maybe for 5 seconds. Because you don't want all of this cinnamon mixture to be blended in. You want there to be chunks. So I'm just going to mix. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. That's all you need. Look at that dough. It's beautiful. All right, we're going to get these scooped out into cookies. All right, so I'm using my cookie scoop, which measures 1 5/8 across. Makes a nice size cookie. I already have 2 trays in the oven that have 15 on, and I got 2 more, so that's 30, 60, and I'm going to probably get another, not quite a full tray here for this one. So this is making a really big batch. Once we're going to bake at 350 for about 11 minutes. We're going to pull them out. Don't overbake. You want them nice and soft and chewy. Once they're cooled, we're going to be drizzling on some white chocolate. I do flatten my cookies just a little bit before I put them in the oven. It just gives them a little bit of a head start for flattening. And I'm pulling them out at, put my timer on before I forget. I am putting them out, pulling them out at 11 minutes. So they are a bit puffy. Because you do want them to, they will flatten a little as they cool. I'm going to let them cool on my trays, on my cookie sheets. Because I'm going to also need to keep them on here because I'm going to drizzle my white chocolate on once they've cooled down. So we're just going to let them cool on the cookie sheets this time. All right, so these have only been out for a couple minutes, but I am transferring them because they will easily stick to the cookie sheet. But I do want to pack them in nice and tight so that when I drizzle my chocolate on, I'm not wasting too much chocolate on the cookie sheet. So you just want to lift them off because if you do have this cinnamon part at the bottom of the cookie, it does stick to the cookie sheet. So I'm just getting those off and getting them a little bit tighter on the cookie sheet for when we drizzle our chocolate. All right, so I've got my white chocolate, which about a cup that I've melted in the microwave. Do it about a minute, check it, and then maybe another 30 seconds as you need it. And use a spoon to mix it up until it comes out nice and smooth. I'm going to also just put it in a plastic bag for drizzling over my cookies. I'm just going to scrape this in. And if you put your bag in a cup like this, it's just easier to pour it in without spilling everywhere. All right, and you can take your bag out of your cup. Close that up. Now we're going to cut a little hole on the end. Just a really tiny little hole. And we're going to drizzle our cookies. So give these cookies a try. This is a must-have in our house now. It's going to be on our regular rotation. So cinnamon roll cookies, I have the recipe there on the counter. I'll also try and type it out into the description box. So give these ones a try on the next time you want to do some baking.